Thanks for joining the podcast. I am doing an in-person interview at a conference, and I'm with Dr. David Robertson. He's a senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management, and we're talking about the impact of AI on the innovation process. And it seems like I hear more and more about this all the time. I was actually in a workshop a year ago where we used AI to help us greatly speed up a design sprint. And I'm attending Dave's workshop tomorrow on AI and use in innovation. And that's really the key thing we're going to talk about is how is this impacting the process. A little bit more information on Dr. Robertson with this. In addition to teaching at MIT, he's the author of Brick by Brick, which was the book on Lego's rebound from near bankruptcy around 2003 and transforming the organization. There's a previous episode you can find on that. We'll try to put that in the show notes, the link to that. And also the author of The Power of Little Ideas on Complementary Innovation. David spent 5 years at McKinsey leading the product development practice and has served as CEO of multiple tech companies and recently developed his own tech company, co-founded protoboost.ai to accelerate AI-driven innovation. He's also taught at Wharton, IMD Switzerland, and now runs MIT's largest executive ed program. Thanks so much for getting together to talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm proud to be a return guest.
Yes.
It's nice to be a first guest, but when you get invited back, that's always a good signal.
Well, you're still learning new things and getting to share them with not just your students, but this time with the listening audience, which is good. So,
thank you.
How's the conference been for you so far?
Good, yeah. Some interesting, especially enjoyed, and you had Ben from Snap-on on the show, and it was great to see him in person and see the visuals that he brought along with it.
Yeah, how he has turned that organization around from an innovation perspective over the last, I guess, 17 years or so.
Yeah.
Really doing amazing things there. We are at this conference, and the conference PDMA is also sponsoring this podcast. So if you have not heard of PDMA, their annual conference this year is called Ignite Innovation, and the organization is the Product Development and Management Association. Members worldwide are really using their innovation skills and expertise and knowledge to drive some of the most respected companies, some of the best emerging companies as well. It's an organization that's been around since 1976. We're approaching the 50th anniversary here, I guess. And it has been an organization that has been very helpful to me in my career development. I discovered them about 20 years ago, and all the research they do, all the publications they make to make it easier for practitioners, for product managers and leaders to understand what is really involved in creating a product that customers will value. And I have valued the organization because of that. So, and continue to help the organization. It is a volunteer-led organization, and I've contributed myself for quite a few years now, including being a co-author on the recent book, the PDMA's Body of Knowledge for Product Innovation. And if you want to find out about other resources that PDMA has and what you get if you become a member, simply go to pdma.org. And keep in mind, next year, around September, October timeframe, we'll probably be doing an annual conference again. So I hope you check it out.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas for product mastery. You'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
Okay, before we get into the specifics of AI innovation, I am curious about something I saw in your background here. So in the mid-'80s, I had a college internship where one of the things I was asked to do was to write a program in Lisp. And Lisp was a language created for AI. And so some of us think of AI being this brand new thing, but it's been around. And I found it in your background, your first postdoctoral fellowship was at MIT in AI. And now that was 35 years ago. And now we get 35 years later, you have co-founded a company using AI for innovation, protoboost.ai. Along the way, you were CEO of other companies too. I'm curious if you see any kind of path, that initial AI thing to what you're doing now.
It's an interesting question because I think about the applications back then, and it's just so different. What we called AI back then and what we think of AI now. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to think about how to compare it, and there was something about language translation back then that was an issue that people were thinking about. And in particular, I remember people were translating things back and forth, And when you really dug under the hood, it was pretty basic kind of if-then programming, like car is voiture in French. And then they'd also have a little bit of syntax, right? So if you speak French, you know that a red car is a voiture rouge in French. They put the adjectives after the nouns. And so they would have word-for-word translations, and then they would have the parsing of the sentences and the kind of structure of it, but it was all like handwritten rules. It was kind of a bunch of if-then statements, and we called that AI. And I remember the problem was that it only worked if you put sentences in a particular structure, and it certainly didn't work in other ways. And there was one example that was very vivid, which is somebody took the phrase, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." And they translated it into Russian, and then they brought it back from Russian to English, and it came back as, "The wine is good, but the meat has spoiled." Right? It just can't do that kind of translation. But I think where we are now with language translation is much more interesting. I mean, Apple just announced these AirPod 3s, which you put in your ears, and you could be speaking some language to me, Spanish, that I don't speak, and I would understand it in English. And I could speak back to you in English, and your earpods would translate it back into Spanish. I gotta say I'm a little skeptical about its ability to understand idioms and to really translate the language. I'm on the board of a company that is doing something really interesting. It does dubbing of movies using AI, right? So if you've ever watched some of these Netflix movies where it was originally in Spanish or some language, and you see the lips move and you hear the English words, but there's just no comparison and the voices are kind of wooden. Well, this company is called OO Studio, is doing some really interesting stuff with AI where they not only listen to the words, but also the way the words are spoken to understand whether that person is speaking in an angry way, a happy way, a loving way, and then they translate it appropriately into the target language. The company came out of India, and in India, there's 1,500 to 2,000 movies a year, each of which, the major ones, gets translated into 13 different languages and dialects. So dubbing is a huge issue.
Right.
And they did two things really smart. One was they locked up the actors, famous actors, and they said, look, you train AI with your voice, and when we're looking for a charismatic lead character in the dubbed language, then we'll use your voice and we'll pay you a licensing fee. And so they kept the intellectual property where it belonged. But the other thing they did was an emotion engine. So when it came over and you had angry speech, then it comes in the target language as angry speech. And so one of the things I'm doing, I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. And the Cherokee Nation lost half of its first language speakers during COVID, and we're losing 7 to 8% per year. And the preservation of the language is really crucial. And so they're working to translate from English to Cherokee so that, say, kids could watch SpongeBob in Cherokee.
Okay.
And I'm telling this extended story because Cherokees have no word for love. The closest word is stingy. And like when you pair up with somebody in Cherokee, you don't say honey or darling, and you don't say I love you. What instead you do is you conjugate your pronouns. So the Cherokees have 60 ways of saying we for a given verb. And if I was speaking Cherokee and my wife was here, then the way you'd know she was my wife is I would say we differently. If it was just 3 people, I'd say we and be all of us. If it was my wife and I would say we, like she and I, and also you. And that's the way you declare your partnership and your love for the other person. Well, now, how do you do a rom-com when you have no word for love, right? I mean, so this translation issue is going to continue to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think AI is part of the way there. But I think we're going to have a long way to go.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of the past, present, and future of.
That's a very interesting project to be involved in now too.
Yeah.
To preserve some of the heritage. So, yeah, where things have come to is fascinating. One of my objectives for this conference was to get a better handle on how AI is really impacting innovation. So I'm very curious to be part of your workshop tomorrow on this as well. But you put together this program at MIT. You've been going through, I don't know when this started, working with students and seeing how AI impacts innovation and teaching them, getting feedback. Is this the executive ed program? do you do it in?
So I've got two executive ed programs. One is a very large kind of mid-career mini MBA program, and I teach innovation in that, and now I'm teaching innovation using AI in that. And then the other one is called Revitalizing Existing Products Using AI-Driven Innovation.
Okay.
My whole thing, as we talked about in the last podcast, is I really focus on how you take kind of old line, maybe commodity products that have been around forever and maybe aren't getting the growth and profits that they want, but customers depend on that company to continue making that product. And so how do you get growth and profits from a mature product in a competitive market? And the lesson from the Lego book and from the Power of Little Ideas was, well, you got to think more broadly about what your solution is for the customer. And sometimes innovating not inside the box or outside the box, but around the box, coming up with innovations that are complementary, that do more for your customer, is the way you get profits and growth. And so we've been talking about how you use AI to do that in that Revitalizing Existing Products program.
Okay, so you probably have seen some good impact of this, gotten some feedback from these students.
Yes.
And we can talk about where ProtoBoost is too, what you've been learning from them so far. But where do you see, when I think about innovation, and when I teach it I have help out with the executive MBA program in Canada and teach innovation there. And I go through the model that's really from Jeff Dreyer and Nathan Furr and the Innovators Method. We come up with some insight, right? So we are asking questions or we're doing ethnic observation work, right? And then that leads to a deeper understanding of the customer and their problem. That leads to exploring different solutions, narrowing that down eventually to one, validating, and then maybe preparing for development through generating a business case, a business model to see does it make sense to move this forward or not and bring it to the market. And there's lots of innovation processes, but they all have some discovery thing. We're scoping out the work and figuring out the solutions. Where do you see AI helping along the way? I don't know if you're focused kind of on one area or if you've explored multiple areas. Where does AI fit?
Everywhere. I'm convinced that we're going to start to see AI being applied at every stage in the process. And I think I like to characterize it as AI gives the product manager a promotion. That it used to be, many product managers were really, they had to do, think about how many things a product manager has to do well, right? They've got to really understand how to talk to customers. They've got to take that field research and really develop some deep insights from it and then turn that into product specifications and then build a business case and a financial forecast. And then they've got to be able to think about engineering trade-offs. Well, just creative problem solving, creative idea generation,
right.
Engineering trade-offs, marketing launch plans, and then present it all to management in a compelling and higher level way, like going above the kind of marketing speak and engineering speak and other things. And so, I really feel for product managers. I think a lot of them don't really have the skills they need. And I shouldn't say it that way. A lot of them have a lot of the skills, but not many have all of the skills that they really need to be an effective product manager. And so I've been really focusing on, well, how do you use AI not just as kind of an agent that will help you do your financial forecast, right? Or maybe somebody who comes out of engineering is less comfortable with that. Well, how could you not only do that for them, but teach you what's important about that and teach you how to talk about it to management, to the CFO of the company, for example. I think we're going to see lots of agents like that. And so it's that product manager. You've talked in the past about being the product owner or the CEO of the product. I think they really are going to be that in a real way, because you're going to have like this kind of McKinsey business case analyst AI, right? And you're going to be responsible for really understanding whether the assumptions in that work were the right ones and the output is good. You're going to have to manage that, just like that promotion to first line manager. All of a sudden, you're not an individual contributor, but you've got to take your smart people and make sure that they're doing the right things with the right inputs and the right outputs and so forth. And then, so you've got the financial projection person, the business case person, you've got the engineers, you've got probably legal, you've got regulatory affairs, you've got all these agents that are going to do great work for you and hopefully going to kind of tell you why they did the work they did and what the results are. But that promotion, I don't know about your experience, but that promotion to first line manager is one of the toughest in business. A lot of people get that promotion and just have a really struggle with it and maybe go back to being an individual contributor or learn it over time, but kind of stall in terms of a path upwards in a company. And so I think it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be very powerful because once you're there, I mean, you can do in literally minutes what used to take months once you have that set of agents going for you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's what I've been talking to different people about, and we tried to do this protobus thing. I think you're going to talk to Nate, who's really the person to ask about that. But we're trying to think about what are the gaps? What are the biggest gaps for product managers? What do they really need if you can only focus on a few things? I was doing a workshop. I do a lot of workshops with companies and kind of help their product managers become really CEOs of the product. And I remember I met this guy, and I'll call him Ed. And Ed was a sales guy, a really smart sales guy, had good relationships, understood the product, had good relationships with the customer, understood the customer, and got promoted to be a product manager. And in that role, had to talk to marketing people about launch plans, had to talk to engineers about engineering trade-offs, had to do financial projections, had to present to management, and had to talk to customers in a way that salespeople aren't used to talking to customers, right? He had to not sell, but listen and develop empathy and kind of look for what else you could do and all the rest, right? And Ed failed. And the thing is, Ed was a bright guy who was motivated, and actually everybody wanted Ed to succeed, and Ed failed. And I really think of that when I think about AI, like how can AI help Ed? And I think that there's a lot of ways. And I'm curious, actually, I want to interview you a bit. You've met a lot of product managers, and you train product managers. You have this. So where do you think are the three biggest gaps that product managers need to fill? Like what three skills, if you could wave a magic wand and make product managers better, where are the biggest gaps that if you could fill those, you would help product managers?
Yeah, I like the question. I think it's very dependent on the individual and in the context of the organization. Yeah. So for example, one of the people I interviewed was and they call them program managers at Microsoft, but it's a product manager. And she was responsible for a search on PowerPoint, I think, right? And so really a feature that we might think about in a program. So her world was that feature, and she probably had a fairly broad spectrum of everything that you just talked about, including having to present to leadership about changes that we might make to search. Others are responsible for that entire spectrum themselves, from idea and carrying it through, overseeing it through development to launch. And then a lot of product managers will be in some element of that. And I think in general, probably more often I see organizations that have, as they move through those phases, that you're doing the initial scoping work, and then we think about doing some prototyping work, and we get into deciding we're going to do development work. There's a lot of handoffs. And I think that's a place where AI can help us, is with the handoff work between the teams, because there's not necessarily a product manager that continues on. Sometimes there is, but in the handoffs, we can see things get lost, right? And so I think that's a place that would just help the process itself. For people that have a wider breadth, my focus, I love fuzzy front end, the front end of innovation, helping out, understanding what are those customers' unmet needs, and really understanding the problem and thinking about the initial solution and seeing the right solution get developed. And then I kind of get uninterested. And if I'm forced to continue on, I will. And if I'm forced to go to launch, I will, but I would really rather someone else be doing it at that point. So that might be a point where AI can help an organization that doesn't have the resources in those different areas, where a product manager says, yeah, I'm great at growth after launch, but I've never really done the front end part, but I'm willing to learn. So maybe augmented tools could help, right? Maybe these augmented tools could help someone fill in some gaps in their experience and skill set. So I may have hit on two there. I don't know if I hit on three, right?
Yeah.
But there's the overall process filling in gaps, and then helping the organization maybe with some of the handoff issues, because we lose knowledge in between, right? Every time there's a handoff.
Yeah.
And that's when I talk to people who have used stage gate, which is the dominant, some form of stage gate is the dominant process in organizations.
Yeah.
certainly large organizations. And if it has a negative reputation, it's often because they have a handoff issue.
Yeah, I like to say there's only two problems with stage gate processes: the stages and the gates. And you probably know what I mean, right? I mean, the stages become bureaucratic nightmares. Every time there's a problem, you add another approval and a sign off and a task and whatever, and they slowly can get more bureaucratic and slower over time. And then the gates can become rubber stamp exercises, right? Kabuki theater, because you've got all this stuff that has to happen ahead, and so you never fail at a gate.
Yeah, we work so hard. Yeah, nothing gets kicked out of gates.
But then things just get lost, like projects get not turned down at a gate, but they just get destaffed, or somebody has like 10, it's their 7th project is that one that passed the gate, but it never goes anywhere.
Right. Yeah. So. Or the other thing I see happen is the project that started making oranges now becomes a project that's making a machine that juices oranges, right? It's a very different thing. Yeah. And we just kind of add on and change things.
Yeah. I would say, just in terms of the product managers I've been working with and the skill gaps that I see, I would say one is communication skills, just really understanding how to make a compelling case for a new product to a wide variety of audiences, be it engineers or top management or marketing people or so forth. I mean, that is often not something that comes naturally to some of the people that become product managers. I would say...
On that point, it's interesting, there's a company here, Narratize AI, and that's where they got their start, what was helping with that communication aspect in innovation projects. And specifically, that was one of their pain points they address is, how do you make that pitch to leadership in a way that will align with the organization, capture their attention, and hopefully result in the outcome you want?
Yeah. The second area I think I put is moving from a cost-focused to a P&L focused. Right? I mean, how does this relate? When you think about this feature, is it worth investing in that feature? What is going to be the cost of it? Are customers going to pay for it? How do we think about pricing? That's really complicated, and often, again, people just don't have the training or experience, but it's so important to do it well. And I think the third, I would agree, is what you're talking about, is how do you understand the whole process and put it together? How do you think about this? And especially the front, if I had to choose like one specific thing, is how do you talk to customers? As a product manager, not as a marketer, not as a salesperson, but as a product manager. It's a very different skill and not obvious.
Yeah, it's probably one of the things I most get questions about is how do I ask questions to customers? And it's something that a lot of people feel uncomfortable with that end up in product management.
Well, they often do it at the wrong level, right? I don't know if you've seen it, but they'll go in and they'll say, hey, what do you think of our product? And the customer will tell them, but basically what you get is a comparison with competition. But if instead, it's like that famous quote from Eero Saarinen, the Finnish architect, the modernist architect. He said, you never think about a chair, right? If I told you I had a great chair, the first question you'd ask is, well, is this a chair for the dining room, for my desk, for the entertainment room? You think about a chair in a room. And so what you should be asking about is, how can I make your entertainment room better? How can I improve the experience of being in the entertainment room? And you're going to get a lot of information around it. And some of it's going to be chair related, and some of it's not. And so that moving up a level, we call it the why-how hierarchy or the ladder of abstraction, understanding how to ask questions at that level, one layer of abstraction higher, not 2 or 3, because then you're boiling the ocean, but just one level higher, and understanding the broader context around the chair before thinking about what the features are in your next release of your chair product.
Yeah, that's an issue for us to figure out and learn as we're growing in product management for sure. For the AI impacting innovation, where are you spending your time right now? I kind of assume by the name protoboost.ai that has something to do with prototyping. And I don't know if there's other areas or not, but where are you seeing AI being particularly helpful today?
Again, it's kind of everywhere. I mean, it blows me away how competent AI is at so many things. And so ProtoBoost is a collection of agents that all collaborate. And so one agent has responsibility for, say, a market segmentation. And based on that and the problem you want to solve, it'll send information to the next agent who's going to do a user profile and, of course, an economic buyer profile. And then they do that and you work with them and get it right. And then you go to the next thing, which is actually amazing, is customer interviews. And here's the prediction that the best information about customer needs in the next year or two is going to be from AI, not from your real customers. There was a study that came out in Nature in July where they'd taken, and if I don't get the numbers exactly right, I hope you forgive me, but they took something like 60,000 people. There's a database of all kinds of decisions that people made in different situations by different social psychologists and so forth. And they had 10.6 million decisions by 60,000 people. And they trained an AI in how to predict whether a person was going to make a particular decision. And they compared the AI's ability to predict human decision-making to, say, Llama, Meta's LLM, and lots of other cognitive and statistical models about how people make decisions. And it was the best. But what was really interesting about the study was where it was bad was predicting the decisions of rational decision makers. In other words, machined programmed decision makers. It could not do that well. It got 64% of human decision making right, but only 35% of rational decision making, right? So it caught that we often anybody who has to make products for customers knows that customers don't always make rational decisions about how you buy a product. Right. Well, now think about how this comes forward, how this is going to naturally migrate itself to AI, is that you're going to take all the information you have about your customers. You're going to take all of those transcripts of your customers' interviews, and you're going to, of course, in a very confidential way, put them into your model and create a model of a customer in a persona, in a customer segment. And I would argue that when you want to really understand the needs of that customer, your interview of your AI may be better than your interview of a real customer, in the sense of we're not very good at asking questions of real customers, and customers are often not very good at answering those questions. And so maybe just getting this collected knowledge is a good way to think about it. And of course, there's the usual, I'll put the usual kind of qualifications on that. Like, of course, if we're moving to a next generation of a product or whatever, but I think it might be surprisingly robust. And so I think maybe the most interesting agent that we might see is the customer agent.
So I've read about these being called the synthetic person, right? And I guess Stanford did some work earlier this year on making their 1,000 simulated humans. And I haven't read the details of all that came out of that, but apparently asking the real people that they simulated and the AI version of them the same questions, that you got comparable answers. And so they were able to capture how someone answers questions, right, accurately. Which seems like we're at a point now where I know I had an interview earlier here at the conference with someone very much involved in voice of the customer research, where they're using AI to help do the analysis of observations and interviews and all that information, and helping to save some time from the human coder that might be trying to analyze all the qualitative information. I'm curious how close we might be to having those synthetic people, right, like you just described.
Oh, it's already here.
That we're not doing interviews anymore. So yeah, tell us about your experience.
Play around with societies. I mean, it's a really sophisticated AI package that a lot of people don't know about. Societies.
That's normal societies. Okay.
Yeah, and I forget whether it's .ai or .app or .com. But what it does is you give it your handles for, say, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and it goes out and it says create hundreds of AI agents that will act as your audience. And so you can send out a post and it will tell you how viral that post will go with the people that listen to you. And then it will give you suggestions about how to make it more viral, more grab your attention of your audience much better. I mean, so you could already use that in your digital marketing.
Right.
And it's kind of amazing that's just one very narrow. I was wondering whether, could you do that with your customer to capture how they would see this? And would societies, I don't see a way to apply it that way, but it's not going to be long till somebody comes up with this.
It's not. No, it's not at all. When you're doing your workshops, teaching the classes, Is there an area that you find your students are resonating with, like, oh, I can see this really helping us if we were to add these AI tools in this area? It's going to reduce time to market, it's going to give us better answers, it's going to help us identify blind spots or realize we missed some questions we should have asked. Wherever we are in the process, is there anything that you see them grabbing a hold of where they say, I can start using that now?
Oh, yeah, yes. I mean, the issue with AI right now is that everybody talks about it. It's like the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. But a lot of people are using AI, but a lot of people are using AI for summarizing meetings or taking notes or writing emails.
Right.
So in my workshops, one of the first things I do is a hackathon. We're going to do this tomorrow here at PDMA. And I give a complex series of tasks. But then I give every prompt you need at every step in the process to accomplish those tasks. And so it helps people understand basic prompt engineering. But then there's going to be an appendix, and it say, okay, so if you understand kind of the basics of prompts, well, here's how you do prompt templates with a prompt brief to fill in the blanks so you could reuse it, and all you have to do is change the variables. Here's how to use an agent to do this. Here's how to make a video of it. Here's how to write a song about it. Here's how, and just show a lot of different, more advanced things. And so what the first part in talking about AI is actually getting everybody up to a certain level. And what I found works is that there's always a couple really, really smart people who have really experimented with it. And you should let them teach. And so what you do is you put them with the newbies, and the newbies go through and do the basic stuff. And then the expert comes in and adds something really cool, teaches them, and then you have each group teach the class what they did. And so it kind of gets everybody up to the same speed. And then you can start to talk about, well, here's what's happening. You guys talked about agents, you talked about this, and so let's move up a level and start talking about our process. Let's talk about how the role of the product manager changed, and let's start preparing for where we're going to be later this year, if not in 2026.
Right.
So you kind of have to, the resonance right now comes from that basic stuff. Oh, so this is what people have talked about. Like, this is what an agent does, and this is how I could put a series of things in it and maybe do a custom GPT, have that thing ready to go. The next time I do it, I just bring it up again and run it again. And so that really resonates because you realize how easy it is once you get the hang of it.
Okay. And then specifically for the process part, do their faces light up when they see, oh, out of this hackathon work, got these new ideas, the AI I think about it a lot of times as my AI companion that's helping me think through this, right? AI team member.
Yep.
Do they find that really helpful for generating ideas? Or there's somewhere else in the process that they say, oh, I see how this can really help me be a better innovator?
Yeah, every step. Yeah.
Okay, so every step along the way. Yeah. Okay, so
the brainstorming stuff is really fun.
Right.
I mean, just the range of different ideas that AI comes up with, half of which they've thought of before and rejected for good reasons, or some that maybe aren't quite realistic. But whenever you have AI, when you show how to do a prompt, there's always a couple ideas. People say, oh my God, of course we should be doing that. Let's get on that right now. I mean, it always happens.
Right. This is a question that is totally unfair, but you've been in enough if I wanted to get your thoughts. So it seems like the last couple steps of AI releases from the big chatbots, there's this growing thought that maybe a 10x in compute results in about twice the capabilities of the AI, right?
Yeah.
And so if the AI is emulating an IQ of 100, 120, something now, a 10x boost puts us into that super genius level of 200 or so, and IQ scores get kind of funky around there. What do you think it's going to look like as far as innovation goes?
Yeah.
If the next step is successful and we actually go forward, and I think there's a reasonable chance we're going to find one of these steps goes backwards and things fall apart, but we'll find out, right? But if things continue to move, like pick a time frame, a year from now.
Well, then our AI overlords find us annoying and kill us off. And no, there's some very smart people.
No, I know this is definitely a
thing. And if people haven't read the 2027 AI thing, where you just take one scenario to the next, and then we all die. I guess the best thing we can do is think about innovation as a way to protect ourselves from our AI overlords. So, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I think when you talk to those people and you ask them for their solutions, given today's political climate, there's no way in hell that we ever get those solutions. So we are on a path now, and I hope they're wrong.
Right, right. Yeah. I hope it becomes a positive tool for humanity.
Yeah, but maybe we should be thinking about how to protect ourselves from our AI overlords.
Right now, my approach is simply I'm always very polite when I'm talking to the chatbot. And I'm hoping it remembers that Chad was the polite one. He always said please and thank you. So, and this came up in a forum once, actually among faculty, we were talking about this, and but there's so much electricity being wasted every time you say please and thank you. And I had to go find OpenAI. Sam Altman talked about this. That said, yes, this costs us a few $1 million a year for people to say please and thank you, but we encourage you to do it because if you're going to be interacting with an AI tool, we want the AI tool to learn to be polite as well and respond that way. So, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that people are doing, Scandinavians are doing some interesting things with these data centers where people talk about not just the energy use, but the water use. Of course, data centers don't use water. They heat it up.
They evaporate water.
Or not, right? What's happening in Finland and Denmark and Sweden is that they're using that hot water to heat greenhouses or to heat apartment buildings. And so in Iceland, for example, they have to import all their food, right? I don't know why everybody isn't building a data center in Iceland where the geothermal energy is about 6 feet underground. And they've got more clean water than they know what to do with. They have the purest water in the world, and they just flush it out into the ocean. And why not build a data center and use it to heat a greenhouse and grow vegetables? And actually, you might have a net savings in energy use because you're not shipping in vegetables anymore.
Right. Yeah. This might start the launch of greenhouses in Iceland.
Yeah, but back to the Cherokee language thing.
Yeah.
To learn Cherokee, I flew down to Oklahoma, to where the tribal headquarters are, and I took a week-long immersion class, and then I flew back. Well, think how many millions of queries that is. If I had an AI that understood Cherokee, and I could query it, and it could create a training curriculum, and I could do that from home. I mean, there's going to be ways like, the best thing that ever happened to, well, I shouldn't say it that extremely, but Zoom has saved a tremendous amount of energy.
Right. Yeah, with remote work and reducing travel and all that.
Yeah.
So really good. Okay, what haven't I asked you about the impact of AI on innovation that you wanted to share?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. We do like innovation quotes. I asked you last time you were here too. What is a quote you'd like to share with us, and give us a little context about why you chose that?
Play all the keys on the innovation piano. Date your customer, don't fight your competitor. Innovation flourishes when the space for it is limited. I like the last one. Innovation flourishes when the space for it is limited. We often think about, let's think of all kinds of things. Let's do something disruptive and revolutionary and whatever. But sometimes the goal of an innovation leader is to put constraints, to put barriers around what type of innovation we want, and then challenge their team to do something great within those barriers. I think maybe last time I told the story of Lego and how one of the things that put them out of business, almost put them out of business, was this idea that we need to reinvent the future of play. And they got a lot of stuff that wasn't appropriate for the brand or profitable for the company or just even very good. When they came back to the brick and said, okay, we want to do something, and we want to have in stores in the holiday season, and we want it to be profitable for the company, and we want it to be a good place. When they said, it became a much more constrained innovation task, but putting boundaries around it, actually limiting the space, gives you more innovation and more profitable innovation. So innovation flourishes when the space for it is limited.
Yeah, it sounds like an oxymoron, but constraints actually do help us focus, and it takes things off the realm of possibilities, and now we can really put effort in where it's going to make the most difference. So I like the quote. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Sure.
And how can people find out about you, the work that you're doing, the program at MIT?
Good question. So, well, my email is d@robin, ROBINN.com. It's Robertson Innovation, the first three letters of Robertson and the first three letters of innovation, ROBINN.com.
Okay. So that's the best way?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to put your LinkedIn profile up as well?
Please.
Okay, we can do that. That's easy to take care of. It's been fantastic to be together and get to talk about innovation, and I look forward to the workshop here at the conference.
Great, and my dream, my goal, and my bucket list item is to appear 3 times on the Chad McAllister podcast. So I'm going to start working right now on what I can do to get myself back on the podcast for a 3rd time.
See what might be next. Okay, we'll see what comes of this. So,
Great.
Dave, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Chad.
And everyone listening, if you want to find the written version of everything we discussed, simply go to productmasterynow.com/567. Everyone, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.